social graces, etiquette for all ages and stages of life. And thank you so much for having me on the Over the Fence podcast today, Teresa. I really appreciate it. This new business has been a long time coming. Many of your viewers may know me as a small business owner from years ago, community leader, economic development professional with the city of Kerrville, nonprofit manager, those kind of things. As a native of Kerrville, I've been here all my life except for college years. I've been around. I'm kind of in denial about how many years, but I've been around and absolutely love our community. I am married to the former fire chief, Chief Raymond Holloway. He was the fire chief for 25 years here at Kerrville Fire Department. And so between the two of us, we have a fun network of friends and acquaintances and business associates and so forth. We tease each other because when we go to an event, it takes us forever to get out of the event, out the door, because he'll stop and talk and I'm ready to go. Then I'll stop and talk and he'll ready to go. So it's like this little shuffle of getting out because you have to talk to these people that you know and you love and you haven't seen for a while and so forth. So just to say that we've been around the block, we have, and Social Graces is my my new endeavor that I'm so passionate about and so excited about talking with you about what etiquette is, what it's not, how our society does or doesn't do etiquette, and why it's important to your viewers.
So first and foremost, I love the name Social Graces. And I think especially now when we've kind of moved into this whole new way of interacting with each other, unfortunately, because we're spending so much time now in digital platforms, I think it's so important, especially right now, that we learn and promote and work on social graces, because it's hard, right? When we begin to interact with each other again, whereas before, even with certain generations that were used to doing that, even before all of this, those digital platforms, we forget how to interact with each other. We forget what's appropriate or inappropriate, and we've kind of lost some of that social grace. And so I love the name, and I do want to hear a little bit more about how you arrived here. I know you've done so much within Kerrville, and you've been a part of so many wonderful organizations. I do want to hear a little bit more about how it kind of evolved into this. But the other thing I'm interested in is how social graces and how etiquette itself is so important to building those relationships, not just personally, but especially within your professional environment. I think most of us are aware of that, but I think deep down inside, a lot of us just overlook that as part of relationship building.
You are exactly right. By definition, etiquette is a set of rules for socially acceptable behavior. And we can kind of take that as a starting point and adjust it to our life today. A little bit of background on how I got here. My parents were members of the Greatest Generation. They were babies of the Depression. Daddy was a World War II Army service gentleman. They were small business owners. They worked so hard and taught my sister and myself the value of hard work, being kind and generous, and giving back to your community, because we are so blessed and have been so blessed. That was just the way we grew up. My mother, who many of your viewers may remember, was a longtime community leader here in Kerrville, business owner, just a wonderful lady. My dad was also a longtime business person. And so they led us by a example. Mother made sure that my sister and I knew how to set the table, what fork to use, what knife to use, how to use it, what glass to use, where the napkin goes. I mean, all of those things we learned growing up. And many of your viewers may think that's a little foreign if they're young, if they're a younger set that didn't have the experience with actually sitting down for family meals. We didn't know not to sit down at the dining room table or the breakfast table or whatever, for that.
Yeah.
As we got older, value instilled upon us about relationship building, how you treat people, manners, how you accept praise, and how you show your gratitude was a huge thing with my mom. And if you ever talk to my daughter, so third generation of this, Meredith will tell you that she got a wonderful upbringing with her grandmother Marge, then Mindy sits in, and then now Meredith, and so it's a generational thing about the kindness and the confidence built when you have social graces. The name came from an interesting time. Last year, as you know, I had decided that I had gone as far as I could go with nonprofit management. I was the executive director of Families and Literacy, our adult education programming for Kerr County. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that I felt like there was a void in our community and our society. And I thought, etiquette. So I was wrestling with this all latter part of last year. And so into January of this year, I'm sitting before everything kind of shut down. We actually got to go to church, and so I was sitting in church in early January, and the series, the topic series, was by the grace of God. And so I'm sitting there listening to the preacher, and I really, honestly, Reverend Payne, I really was listening. I just went, grace, social graces. And it was like a light bulb, and it was like, yes. Thank you for giving me the light. And so I ran with that and started doing as much research and so forth as I could. For about 10 years, I have been going up to, as a volunteer, been going up to Tybee High School once a semester to teach the home styles. That's not the correct term for the class. It's us older people will call it like home ec or home and family living, that kind of class. Yeah. Boys and girls. I was asked by a longtime teacher, Melissa Hayes, to come talk about tourism and hospitality, and I threw in the etiquette. And so for years, I would come up every semester and teach in a 55-minute period, which was a lot of fast talking, about tourism, what our economy is based on here in Kerr County. One of the major components of our economy. Hospitality, what is it and why does it matter? And then etiquette, and why you should be concerned with etiquette, and oh, by the way, what is it? And so that has been going on for about 10 years. And so now I'm taking it to the next many different steps with the business. I'm excited about developing our website. I'm working with the Alera group to do that. I'm excited about researching the ways that our society has changed with etiquette. A neat story that I must share with your viewers. Longtime friends of my parents, who, again, my parents are gone, but the friend is still very much around. And again, gross generation. His wife passed away. His daughter called me the other day and said, it said, look, I'm going through her things. I found all these books on etiquette. Do you want them? And I said, absolutely. I will come right over. Teresa, I'm not kidding you. It was 7 books, and it was penned from the mid 1920s into the mid 1990s. And I am cherishing those books. It's the bride's book. It's the business book. It's the Nancy Reagan's official press secretary's book.
Wow.
It is, they are treasures.
Yeah.
And what it shows to us is how we've changed. And that's where Social Grace's Mindy Wendele comes in for today's world.
Love that. So that kind of brings me to my next questions, or actually 2. So when you go into the schools and you're talking to kind of those different generations, what first part of this is, what is their perception of etiquette? So when that word comes out, what's their vision or their perception of what that is?
Depending on what age they are, but if it's the class that I was teaching at Tybee High School, so we're talking sophomores through seniors, 16, 17, 18-year-old, they look at me like I have a third eye when I say etiquette. They kind of like, what? And how do you even spell that? Kind of thing, which is tricky. But, I simplify it by saying it is how you treat people with good manners. And they kind of know what manners are.
Right.
So they kind of go, okay. So it's amazing that they don't realize, and I don't know why I say it that way, because if you're not exposed to it, you don't know. Right. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so I'll start talking to them about, do you know that there's a proper way to greet people? No. Do you know there's a proper way to put a name tag on? I mean, there's a lot of adults that don't know this. I mean,
I may not know that.
So I start with those simple things with the students, and I make them interact with me. I make them get up, and I make them, look me in the eye, and I don't force them, of course, but I encourage them through fun and laughter to know how to put your name tag on. Well, do you know how? Why would you put your name tag on your right shoulder? I don't know. So even though you might be left-handed, you shake hands with your right hand. And so your name tag is always in eyesight of the person that you're shaking hands with. They go, oh. And so I said, okay, so if you put your name tag on your right side, and for some reason you're in a wedding and you're a groomsman or an usher and you have a boutonniere, of course then I had to explain what a boutonniere is. Which is fine. I love it. You would put it on what side? And it stumped them. I said, you would put that on your left side, and because you remember that you are having the flowers closest to your heart. So just little tidbits like that. And it's really, you have to, at that age, you have to make it fun.
Yeah.
I was really glad when the classes were early in the morning instead of right after lunch, because I had to fight their full tummy.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
You have to stay straight with it. But
you got to fight that with adults too. That's not just for kids.
It's not just with 16-year-olds, is it?
No.
But in what you and I, because we're involved with the business world and relationships and so forth, may take for granted. Some of these children have never been exposed to these types of manners. Teresa, I like to say that if you have good etiquette, proper etiquette, it's not the queen's. We are not going over to meet the queen. We are wanting folks of all ages, and that's why it's all ages and stages of life, to be able to be confident and kind. Mm-hmm. And when you know manners, when you know proper etiquette, you're confident and you're kind. So that is a pretty much summation of the overarching purpose of Social Graces.
Yeah. When you can introduce yourself confidently when you can have a kind conversation or a kind interaction with somebody. You can be pleasant, you can smile.
Right.
All of those things I definitely see and think come through in people. So I completely agree with that. And I think that comes back to something we were having a conversation about prior to starting recording was the differences in now what's happening with good and bad of how we've kind of now transitioned into so much of conversation with now having to be on platforms like Zoom and having to be on our phones. And so the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of those things.
Right. You know, and again, our society is constantly evolving. Our culture is constantly evolving. You know, people my age, we were full blown adults with children, many of us, when the computer got to be commonplace. When the World Wide Web was like it's the what? You know, email is like, huh? You know, I mean, yeah. So we've had to learn that. Children of ours or younger, they just grew up with this. They grew up with a computer in their classroom. They grew up with this. Now, the millennials, you know, they grew up and are still growing up, as we all are, you know, with mobile devices. They don't know any different from a phone or an iPad, a Chromebook now, or you know what have you. So what that's done is it has somewhat taken the place of conversation like you and I are having.
Right.
And it's easier in some folks' mind to be able to talk over the phone via text, via email. And so this verbal conversation is kind of losing ground as it relates to in our everyday life. You know, when you are in a business meeting with a potential client or a prospect or business owner or so forth, how to present yourself and how to represent your office. Sometimes folks don't know that. So by teaching them the little tidbits to build that confidence, they don't have to worry about, is my name tag on the right side? Am I shaking hands with Mrs. Jones too hard? Or Mr. Jones is a former Marine, or I didn't shake hands more? Or how do I introduce someone to someone else? You know, how do I sit? You know, those are the type of things that are confidence builders that I'm here to help folks with. In my experience with teaching or presenting to the Toronto University etiquette banquet this last February, it was a very interesting evening because it was senior level students, business students. They were interacting with myself as the etiquette presenter and the chef, Martino, at the university,
Mm-hmm.
and community leaders. And by design, Chef and I made it a challenge for the food. Lots of forks, lots of spoons, soup, chicken, you know, things that you're going, oh my gosh, now what do I do? You know, kind of thing. And, you know, I tried to impress upon the students that, look, you are getting ready to graduate and you will have job interviews. I would suspect many of them will be over lunch. Mm-hmm. And if you think that you're just chatting at lunch, no, you're being interviewed at lunch. You're being assessed at everything you do, from the way you sit, the way how your napkin goes, the way you interact with people, and it's a learning process that's not it's not hard, but it does take some time mm-hmm. to develop. You know, you and I were talking about your presentation at the summit this last year, and it was a great presentation. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And I know you were very nervous, and it and I was sitting back there going, "Come on, you can do it," and you did it beautifully. And what that did for you, I would venture to say, is that it got that one under your belt. You're standing in front of 250 people, so you check that box off. So yes. The next time you do that or have done that, you don't have quite as few butterflies and so forth. Am I right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So this repetitive work that we do with etiquette is just that. It's learning and never quit learning how to do this kind of thing. And when we do these learning events, each time it gets easier, and there's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing more attractive than a confident person. Not overconfident, don't get me wrong. I think the ego's in
Yep.
check. But, a confident person is very attractive, whether it's a business relationship, a teacher-student relationship, a personal relationship. When you're confident, you are relaxed and you exude an air about you that you're someone that people want to know.
Yeah. And I think that allows you to enjoy what you're doing, right? Because if you're feeling insecure and you're having that and you're constantly questioning yourself, I think you lose the ability to have that joy and that passion maybe about really what you're doing or presenting. And you're right in that I conquered that fear of that one day, got it under my belt, passed it, check box. And then I started these podcasts, right? Kind of out of necessity. Like, how do I move forward with accomplishing the things that I needed to do in the midst of this pandemic?
Right.
And so first podcast, I was petrified. Second one, it was like, okay, hiccups here and there, got past them. And each one has just gotten a little bit easier. I've loved them because I'm getting to have these conversations with people that I've missed. It gives me that opportunity to interact with them. And it's better and better. I'm not fearful of it anymore. So you're right, that repetition of it, and the less insecure I am about it, the less fearful I am about it, the more I enjoy it. And
and as you said, and it shows. It shows when you're comfortable. Your topic. It just shows, because it just flows, and you smile a lot more. As a whole, we do, because we're happy doing these things. When I was developing Social Graces, my husband, and as I said, he was a former fire chief. So, think about tough guy, firefighter, EMS coordinator, all these things. He says, and he goes, well, I know how to use a fork. I said, I understand you do. I understand you do. And you know how to shake hands and all those things. But he asked me a very important question. He said, why do you think people will think this matters? And I had to stop and think about that question, because it is a great question.
That is a very good question. Matter? Yeah.
And it matters for different people in the different stages of their life. I have a good friend who is a wedding coordinator. A wedding coordinator. I have several good friends that are wedding coordinators and in that industry. And I was asking them individually, would something like Social Graces be an approved vendor with you? And one of them looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, well, there's etiquette to go along with weddings, clearly.
Absolutely.
It's a huge social and financial situation these days. And every one of them said yes. But they also said, about like Raymond said, how are you going to convince them that they need this? So there's where you go into the confidence, relaxed, breathing easier, those type of things. When you are in that age bracket of looking for, you're a job seeker, and I'm a firm believer in that your dream job shouldn't come, at 22. It should come after you've been a little more worldly, and so you can handle it better with wisdom and
yes.
and conscious and all that stuff, So, but things have changed. things change every day, with our society. As I said before, the technology has really changed the younger set, and it may be even your daughter's age. My daughter is interestingly enough, she's not of that age. I guess she's a Gen Y, and she even looks at some of these younger college students and go, "Mom, can you believe what they're doing?" Which I kind of have to chuckle to myself, because it's like, yeah, I was saying that about 20 years ago with you.
It's how easy we forget what we did.
That's right. But it is a situation where it is not only getting the job, going through a wedding or a special event process. It is for business and nonprofits both. Those of us that have had the fortune to be able to work in the nonprofit sector, and small business too, for sure. We know the value of appreciation and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
We also know when folks do not show that gratitude with something as simple as a thank you note. I am huge on thank you notes, whether it's nonprofit management, whether it's personal. It is imperative that a thank you note is written. I tell the students in the classes in the past that if they have time to put a stamp on an invitation and mail it, they have time to write a thank you note and put a stamp on it after receiving the gift.
Yeah.
And so many times that's not the case these days, and it is very unfortunate that showing gratitude with something as simple as a 3-line thank you letter, not a text.
I was just about to ask you that. So how do you get over that hurdle of, so I sent an Evite, right? And so all of these digital invitations, how do you get past that, the difference between explaining the digital invitation and those thank yous that are very easy to send in via email and via text message, or the thank you phone call, or
right.
And I think those are great, but the difference between that versus receiving something in the mail.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's, and again, because of our changing society, when you do get those evites, you get evites for birthday parties, for anniversaries, for baby showers. I mean, it's just so easy, and they're very clever. They're beautifully done, online and so forth. My philosophy on that is, if you are a recipient of a gift that was produced from that evite, you really need to write a thank you, a real live thank you letter. If you were invited to a party, a celebration where you were a guest and it was an evite, it is appropriate to write your thank you note via the computer. So the great way to remember all of that is if you were invited via mail, you actually got an invitation to the wedding, an invitation to the birthday party, the celebration or whatever, the thank you letter needs to come in that form through the mail. And the only way I'll ever let other people get out of not writing the thank you letter is if it was that they did not receive a gift, and it was the invitation was issued over the computer.
I love that clarification. That's actually very simple clarification. Very, very easy to remember. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's the key to Social Graces, and me coming to your business or to your classroom or to your wedding prep or what have you. It's the tricks of the trade, so to speak, that I will help people remember those little things, like what I just explained about the invitation. For example, for the name tag goes on the right because you shake hands with the right. Flowers go on the left because it's closer to the heart. Those little tidbits, and we haven't even talked about table settings. So, there's all kinds of tidbits about table settings too.
My sister is a personal chef, and I used to help her in the beginning stages of her business with table setting and all of that. And I constantly had to ask her, because I'm going to need to enroll, Mindy, because
Yeah.
I think I've gotten much better at personal conversations because I love them. But I definitely have some work to do on the ins and outs, because I did not know that about the name tags. I did not.
See?
I, for whatever reason, I just default to putting it on my left, and maybe because I'm right-handed, and so it's easier for me to just do that instead of,
Yep.
that seems opposite to
Yep.
me. But anyway, so see, already I learned something.
There we go.
That. Every day you learn something new, and I'm a big, I'm a big proponent of that. So love it.
But and I think that as we get to open back up, and we can have some of my seminars, and I use that word very I want to say loosely. It's a morning of conversation and information gathering over lunch. Nice. And I will be hosting some of those very soon, as we get opened back up in our state, and we will do a lunch, and we will do a 2-hour session, including lunch, to talk about all those things for people that you think they know, but they may not, or they think they know one thing, but hey, Mindy has a way of putting it in our head that, oh, remember this, it rhymes with that, or those are the kind of techniques that I'm looking forward to helping,
I'll be there.
Well, and I appreciate it, because really, this, you work with small business people every day. Yeah. So I am now a small business person, again. Small business people do their business because they love it.
Yeah.
I thought there was a void in our society, in our town, in our county for this. And I went, let's do it. And so it's like right in the middle of a pandemic. Well, yeah, come on. Now's the time.
Yes. Now is the time. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so small business people don't necessarily think they're ever going to get rich. If you do, you shouldn't be in small business, right? But you do it because you are passionate about what you're doing.
Yes.
And you want to make a difference.
Yes.
And my fee schedules for those different events are going to be very reasonable, very much customized to the purpose. For example, I had a grandfather call me last month and said, I have an 8-year-old granddaughter. I would really love for you to do this. And I said, okay, what do you, so I interviewed him basically. What do you want her to do? What do you need her to do? What are you thinking? He goes, well, basically it's saying what we've been saying, but you're not the grandparents. I said, oh, I get it totally. I get it. So I customized it for him, for the little granddaughter and her friends. And, it could be one-on-one. In that case, it was 5. And it was just fun. If you make it fun, no matter what age you are, you remember it, right? You go,
yeah.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So I think that the investment, and you're in that return on investment business.
Yeah.
Return on the investment for hiring social graces to help is going to be enormous. And so I'm looking forward to hosting some events, and of course then customizing for school age children and adults and business world.
Well, the return on the investment for our community, and let me just thank you in advance, is generations of socially graced young adults coming into our workforce that understand how to greet people respectfully. We've talked about it a lot of, how there seems to be a void in just soft skills within businesses. And so, that's just a huge part of what we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And the customer service component of all of this, in whether it's in business, especially in business or nonprofit management, is so important. Again, preaching to the choir here, but etiquette takes it a little bit, social graces takes it a little bit, um, not beyond, but maybe a dotted line to the side of customer service, or your soft skills, because there's some customer service folks in this community that are bar none the best that they do.
Yes.
They help businesses, individuals, and so forth. And I've learned a lot from them. So I'm not, Social Graces is not competing with them, or an enhancement to what they do. And for maybe a non-business, which would be about 45% of my business work. I will learn from them, and maybe their students can learn from us too.
Yeah. Well, my final question for you, or topic of conversation, that I love to ask everybody is, one, what brings you joy? But I can just see working with people. I think we've talked about that quite a bit already. But how people individually measure success, both within business and within your life. So, how do you measure success?
I absolutely love that question, and I've asked that question to folks over the years too. Those of us who are Type A, and we want to touch it, feel it, see it, tangible. So it's hard sometimes for us to grasp an intangible concept, but it is what it is. And I measure success with whatever I do, with how people have learned from my teaching, or my setting the example, or my leadership. It's very humbling when someone comes up to you and say, "You don't remember me, Mindy, but," and starts talking about a story that truly is like, "What? Did I do that? Did I, it meant so much to me. You helped me see in a different light. You got me through such and such." That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I will tell one quick story in closing about that. I was with the city of Kerrville for almost 20 years, and with business development, downtown redevelopment. And years ago, a young lady called me. She's from here. She called me as a senior in high school at Tybee High School, and she asked if they could help in the downtown parade for homecoming, which Tybee High School does, and we love it, and that's such a tradition for all of us Tybee graduates and so forth. And she asked me a few things, and so okay, we made our deal, whatever it was. 20 years later, not quite 20 years later, she's interviewing for a job with me, and married, little boy. Aww. And she said, "Mindy, you may not remember this, but," and so she told me this story about her calling me, and I was her very first adult person, besides her parents, to call as a business person. And I said, "That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Was I nice to you?" You worry. And she goes, "Yes, you were very nice, and you accommodated our needs and worked with us, and I really appreciate it." Well, of course, I hired her on the spot. But it's just that's how I measure the success, and the success of others. Yeah. My mother was a wonderful business person, and she was one of those women in the 70s and 80s that helped crack the glass ceiling for women in business. And she was a VP at one of our local banks here for years and years. And her montage was, "If you have something good to say about our programs, tell my boss, tell the president. If you have a concern, a question, a complaint, come to me, and we'll fix it together." And that's how I kind of go to.
Nice. So. Oh, I love that. So I just want to say thank you. Every time I have approached you with something, you've been so gracious. You have offered so much support and so much wisdom. I will be really excited to be able to make an announcement in the next few weeks on a project that you've been working on with me, and really excited about that. And you've just been wonderful support in that, and would not have been able to accomplish that without you. So I'm really excited to be able to make that announcement. So everybody that's listening, keep your ears open, and we'll be able to make that announcement. And today, so measure some success for yourself today, because I learned something new from you. So
Good.
And I look forward to, when all of this is over, to be able to be in person with you and walk through some of those seminars. And I just really appreciate your time, Mindy. It's always such a pleasure to have conversations with you. So,
well, you are so kind, and I really appreciate your time and asking me to be on your podcast. Now that we're kind of wrapping up, I can say this is my very first one. So see, you checked my box today too. So it's always a pleasure talking with you. And you know, as I have gotten older, I finally have quit being in denial about, I am now kind of turned that corner, and I'm a mentor to so many. But working on the project with you and other things, it's like, yeah, I am in that stage of life now, and I love every minute of it. So thank you for everything that you do for our community, and you and Gil. And I really appreciate this time. And I will be in touch with the website and
yes.
Announce that to you, so you can get that out to folks. And when it's done, and hopefully it'll be just a few more weeks.
Yes. And I know part of what we had a conversation about just a few weeks back, we were talking about you possibly launching a podcast. And so I look forward to the opportunity to listen in on that and be able to make some announcements on our side of things when that comes up. And so, just wonderful, great opportunities for you and for your business and our community, and how you'll be just pouring so much more of your joy and your heart into it, which, you know, you've already done so much of that. So again, Mindy, thank you so much for being on, and always just such a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you again.
So have a wonderful day.